Hello everybody and welcome back to Tailored Turnings. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Scott Taylor and I'm the host of the channel. Today we're going to be working on a new project. This isn't one that we've done a preview on before. The other ones are a bit on hold just for some added time that I need to work on those. So we were talking about the seam ripper and the clock. Those are both on hold for just maybe another week. We'll get some content out on those to you. So today we're going to start up a new quick project. It's one that I actually found online. So stay tuned. It's not one that I designed, but we'll kind of get you through it and walk you through how we're going to go about making them. So these are ramps, and these are ramps to drive your car up on if you want to do an oil change or you got to work on something on the bottom of the car. You can probably go out and buy the metal kind. You've probably all seen them before, but they're not the easiest to store. Sometimes they're a little on the flimsy side. And I've relocated twice, and I have two sets of the metal type, and they're both back in Georgia and I'm in Florida. So he went from a Silverado pickup, which is pretty easy to get underneath, or at least get a jack under it with lowered. But now he's driving a Mercedes C55 AMG, and those sit pretty low to the ground. They're actually just a little bit difficult to get the jack under anyway, but this will allow him to get the front end of the car or the back end of the car up on it, on top of some ramps and be secure. So I'll flip the camera around and we'll kind of go through how we're going to go about making these and what the overall design is. Again, it's not my design, but at least we'll show you how to assemble it and some of the materials that are needed. I'm going to try this ahead of time. I'm working on the bench that's a little bit further down the garage, so the lighting is a little bit different over here. Hopefully I've got a light set up that's going to do what we need to do. So pardon me if it's not, if the lighting's not just perfect, but it should work for what we're trying to do here today. So give me just a minute. We'll be right back, and it'll be ready to go in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so here we are back. I've got you all set up here to take a peek at the materials that you're going to need. So there's going to be two sides, but I'm going to show you the materials needed in the assembly for one side, and it'll just be duplicated for the other side. So in total, you're going to need a 2x10 by 10 foot long, and I actually bought two of those since there's two sides. But when you go to make your cuts, and I'll put a list either on the side of the video or probably in the description too, I'll see what I can do with that. So when you go to make your cuts, you're going to need one at 28 inches long. You're going to need one at 16 inches long. You're going to need 4 at 15 inches long. You're going to need 1 at 8 inches long. And you're going to need 1 at 3 inches long. This will leave you a block left over at the end. That's just going to be scrap. There's no reason to assemble it here, and once these are all done, you'll kind of see the reasoning why. You could alter the measurements maybe to use up that little bit of scrap, but as you can see on this workbench behind you, and if you have your own shop, there's always a reason to have extra scraps of wood laying around. So I keep quite a stack usually. That's a small stack, but I'll use those extra. I think they're 5 inches left over at the end, but I'll use those around for other purposes. Drill backers. When you're drilling something you want to go through, but use it for that, or use it on the drill press for other purposes, or for clamping down something. Anyway, just hang on to that 5-inch block. You can always use it on something else. So in addition to the I'm sorry, this was a 2x8 by 10 foot. If I didn't say that right earlier, I think I might have said 2x10 by 10, but it's a 2x8 by 10. So in addition to that, you're going to need some 2.5 inch. I recommend these Grip Right exterior screws. These are carried at Home Depot. I think they have something very similar at Lowe's. They're basically a deck screw and exterior screw. I keep these around. They're kind of my general purpose. They're a little bit thicker than a drywall screw and just a little bit stronger, and they go in real well. These are a Phillips head. You can get the Torx head. You can get all sorts of different styles, but these are just a straight 2.5 inch coarse thread deck screw. And they'll hold up to the moisture that's going to be in your garage because they are painted. So in addition to that, you're going to need an Everbuilt. In my case, I decided to use an Everbuilt T-hinge. So the person that originally made the video used a door hinge, but door hinges don't lay flat. So you're going to have to flatten those out. You could save yourself a little bit of cost. I think these are $5.50 each. So you'd have about 11 bucks in the hinges that you need. You need 2 of them for 2 sides. And then also the barrel bolt latch. He used a relatively simple hook and loop type of latch that's like, I don't know, $2 or $3. I just wanted something that was already painted because I am here in Florida and stuff does have a tendency to rust. So I wanted it to be already painted, and I just like the looks of this. It's a little bit heavier than the little tiny hook and loop that he used, and it'll lock it in real good. So one of those, again, I think these were $4.50 or $5 each, so another 10 bucks there. So this whole kit design here, if you had the screws on hand, that's 10 bucks. So if you had the screws already on hand, you're talking 30 bucks to make 2 of these. So that's pretty inexpensive. They are going to be a little bit heavy, so you could opt to put, some rollers on the end of them or add some additional handles for moving them around the garage. We're going to get this assembled and see how it works out, and I might end up adding some little roller feet on the end or some handles on the side to move them around, because the 2x8 does get kind of heavy. So be right back and we'll start talking about the assembly. Okay, so we're back. So I separated those cuts that we talked about into 2 stacks. Put the 15 inches, the 4 15-inch boards in one stack with the 3-inch on the top. And then I'm going to put the 28, the 16, and the 8 in the other stack. Now, this may be overkill, but if you look at this end grain here, kind of what we got going is boards moving in opposite directions. And so actually what I want to do, don't pay attention to the 3-inch on the top, but on this one down here at the bottom, I just want to take that and flip it over. And then we're going to come back the opposite way again, the opposite way again. And then the 3-inch on the top, I just put it so the grain is facing down. So that'll help with, I don't really think it's going to happen too much because there's going to be 6 screws in each one of those 15s. And so I don't think you're going to get any cupping or moving around, but that will likely help keep these all together. So the other thing that I did too is, as I was setting these into place, I wanted to make sure that my screws that are coming through the one on the top are not going in to the same exact position as the screws on the bottom. So as you can see, they are just a little offset. The easiest way to do that is go ahead and drill out your first plate. And then before you go to drill your holes in your second plate, just run your drill bit down through there real quick, and it'll leave a witness line on the next plate down as to where the screws from above are going to be hitting. And that way you can move your screws accordingly so that they're not going to be in the spot of the one below it. So we got that stack ready to go. And then over here on our other stack, we kind of got the same thing going on. So here I am going to leave them in the same direction there, just because that longest one, the 28-inch long, and then the 16 on top of it, it's not going to want to cup away. And in fact, these are nearly from the same section of the wood, just the next cut down. So these are going to run in the same grain pattern, but I did want to take and put this one. Actually, I think I am going to do that different. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this one over so that they're opposites, and then I'll put this one together so that they're kind of forming. And that'll lock things together, I think, in my opinion, so that these won't cup and twist in weird ways. But I do like the top one to be referenced the way that it is, if you can see that. and more obvious, because this top one is almost the center of the board where the heart is at, but this one over here is further out towards the edge, and so I prefer that top board to be sitting in that orientation, with the curve going the way that it is here. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay these down. We're going to flip them over opposite as we're laying them down. So I'm going to roll them over and flip them down that way. And then we're going to go ahead and screw these boards together, and then we'll roll this one back on top, so we're keeping our grain orientation in the right direction. So we'll go ahead and do that and then show you how it looks. Okay, we've got them screwed together. We've got our 4/15s and our 3-inch up on the top, and we've got our 28, our 16, and our 8. So the way that these are going to line up, you're going to take the short long stack, and you're going to line these up next to it. That's the way it's going to line up. Now, I know my cuts aren't just perfect, but we are making something to drive cars up on, right? So you can get them a little bit more perfect if you wanted to clamp them together, but this will work out just fine. So remember, you're working with wood, and yes, you can be as particular as you want, but guaranteed when you go to cut stuff, you're going to have, you know, a little bit of differences. I could trim that up pretty easily if my chop saw was here, but it's not. So we're going to live with that the way that it is. I think we'll be just fine, and we'll get the hinge installed and the locking mechanism installed on them, and we'll show you what that looks like. I didn't figure you needed to see the video of me screwing a bunch of pieces of wood together, and I also don't think you probably need to see me screwing a hinge on the side of a piece of wood either, or the lock. So I'll get that installed, and then we'll come back and look at how they are when they're completed. All right. Okay, so we're back. Everything's assembled on both sides, the right and the left ramps. Now these hinges, when you put them on, you're going to have to remember that they're going to be opposite when you're lined up to the car. So the hinges are meant to swing outward from the car. So remember that if you're assembling a set of these, you want your hinges to be on the opposite sides. Don't put them on the same sides as you're making them. So the reason why that's important is this is designed so that once you get your car up on the top, up here, and I'll show you a video with it up there, but in case you need to access underneath of the car but from the side, this can hinge out of the way. So, and that'll go all the way flat. And that gives you full access to what would be the rocker panel, or in this case, the passenger side door of your car. So remember I said I had those latches that I had purchased that were a little bit different. They were this style. So when I put those on, the problem is that swing pulled this directly away from it. It slid right out of it. So that style didn't work. So you got to think on your feet sometimes. And I could have ran down to the store and bought the other style, but I thought, well, let's just see what I have. So I have plenty of those screws. So what I did is I have plenty of oak that I scrapped from a knife scabbard at a Goodwill. I've talked about that in other videos, and I've kept pieces of that around. So I just drew me out a little hook, carved it on a bandsaw, sanded it up, and you know, that hook's in there so that you know, it's locked in place. So now that's not meant to be maybe the permanent style, I don't know, but we'll see how it works out and if we need to change them. So what I'll do is I'll cut the video right here, and in no time in your time, you'll come back and you'll see me bringing it up on bringing the car up on them, and let's see how they work out. see if there's any editing that's brought into this one. You guys may not care about the comments that I make, the little section that I do on editing, but you know, I'm growing in my project knowledge. You know, this one here is pretty rudimentary. It's not perfect, like the joints aren't perfect, the latches aren't perfect, but it is very strong. It's not going to come apart. A bit out of breath. It's hot here and I've been moving around, so pardon me. But so yeah, this project's a little bit rough. You know, it's not a finished piece of furniture or something like that, but it'll get the job done. Those are more than strong to hold the vehicles that you're going to be putting up there. You know, would I park a 1-ton truck on this? Probably, but I'd probably make them bigger if I was going to do that. But you may think, well, a 2x8 by 10 foot is pretty much what we used on this project, minus about 5 inches. So that's pretty heavy. Well, yeah, it is, but if you've ever picked up one of the metal ramps, those things are heavier than this is, and they don't have the versatility of being able to kick that little ramp part out of the way if you need to access it from the undercar from the side. So just something to consider. I'll come back here in just a minute. Once I get the car off, I want to show you the other neat thing about these ramps that you probably haven't considered yet. But I will say an addition that I would make, and probably will make at some point, maybe, is to put some handles on them on each side, just to make them a little bit easier to carry. But you're not moving these around much. You're going to set them up wherever you're going to drive up your car up, and then that's going to be it. So anyway, I'll get the car off of them and bring it back inside, and we'll see how the whole project turned out with the next step. All right, hang on. So that was showing you the ramps using my Nissan Sentra. It's the only car that my wife and I have here, but I referenced the C55 AMG my son owns, so that's his beast. So for those of you that know what a AMG is, or a C55, C63, C43, yeah, that's kind of not the same beast, but yeah, that's a fun little rocket ship there. 55,000 miles on it, and we've got it. And it doesn't have much more but a trip from California back here. So show you one of the reasons why I built the ramps was that he's a Mercedes, went to school for Mercedes technician, and so though he's not working in that now, he does his own service, so it'd be good for him to have something that's real gradual. So for any of you that know, when you buy those metal ramps, they're actually a lot steeper incline than this. So to put the Nissan on it would probably be okay. I have used them before, and it's rubbed a little air deflector that's underneath the front bumper, but on his car there'd be no way. The front bumper would just push those ramps all over the place, and I'd end up damaging the bumper. That's an expensive bumper, let me tell you. So one of the other cool things about these, you see them got them set up a little polar opposite of one another. And I did make a mistake. I know you're surprised, but I did make a mistake. I'll preface it with that. So this board that I marked 8 inches on is not. It's a little shorter, and you'll see here in just a second why I say that. So let me flip this over. Let's see if I can get you in such a way that you can see me flip it. So you flip these over and you roll them together as if you had them stored up against a wall. So this is the way that you roll them over, and they stack into one another. And right there, you'll see my air. So it's off by about 3/8, probably more like a half, truly. But anyway, measure twice, cut once. I don't know. Something about that rule, but at least it's not one of the top or the bottom plates, because these fit together really tight, and you flip the one upside down, you roll it onto the other. That's why these measurements work out. Now that other 5.5 piece, or 5-inch piece rather, 5.5 on the one, you you could divide that up, I suppose. But this measurements that I gave you here at the beginning of the video, and I'll post them again, those measurements work out really nice to have this, laid out the way that it is. And you see, it's not perfect, right? I mean, you're dealing with lumber. This lumber is not milled true. It's not milled on the sides true. It undulates and it warps in a little bit. You could, if you really wanted to, you could worry about painting it. If this were more exacting, used for a more exact purpose, then I would probably paint them being in Florida. But we're going to see how they hold up the way that they are. The other thing is the screws that come with these hinges they're not the heaviest of hinges. I wouldn't say that they're like a gate hinge. At best, they're maybe like a decorative shutter hinge kind of thing. So the screws that come with them they're not really small. They work, but if you're putting them in, they will want to strip out. So they're finer thread, and they're really not that large. So for this one, I didn't have any of the rest of them strip out, but for this one, I did have to put one of those wood screws in. I just used 1 5/8 instead of a 2.5. So, but they're holding. The rest of them seem to be holding all right. So we'll see how those hold up over the long term. I may have to go back and replace the other ones with a bigger screw. The hole is big enough to take the deck screw. It's just not, the screws that come with them are a little shallow and not very coarse threaded. So their hold isn't the greatest, but we'll see how they hold up over the long term. If I have to take them out and replace them, it's no big deal. I can do it right there. I don't have to take the whole thing apart. Same thing for this homemade latch hinge kind of thing. I mean, that's just rough. I threw it together in like 2 minutes and it works. So we'll see how it holds up over the long term. I might end up replacing that with something a little bit more, manufactured, but for now it's fine. So this was a fun, neat little project. I did this all in about 5 hours maybe, and that included, that really included going and getting the wood and the parts and then working out some of the kinks that I had with the latches. So, it didn't take very long. It saved a ton of money. I can't remember what those ramps are going for, maybe a couple $100 for the steel ramps. And like I said, this one here, I probably have, if you didn't count the screws, which you usually have on hand, maybe $30 with the latches and the wood. Lumber is getting better, but those 2x8x10s were a little over $10 a piece where I'm at here in Florida. So $20 in the wood, another $10 in those hinges, really another $10 in the latches. It didn't work, but I call that a wash because the other material here for the latches was free, leftovers. So neat little project. I know it wasn't the clock or the seam ripper, but really appreciate you if you hung around. Like, share, and subscribe. As I always say, it's a real added benefit for me. I'll keep trying to come up with these little projects to do in the shop. I needed something to do today. I was supposed to work in my regular position. We've got a ton of overtime right now, but for some reason it got pinched back this week. So I needed something to do out here in the shop that wasn't going to take me too long, but the rippers were going to be too long. The clock was going to be too long. I wanted to do something that I could do in one video and get it all wrapped up, start to finish, and not have to do segments. So we'll see what kind of editing we can do. Hope that these are getting better, although the footage that I lost last week, it was a little disheartening because it was highly edited. I know that stuff probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but it does add to the viewing experience, adds to the retention. It just makes it a little more seamless, a little bit more professional, but I'm at the mercy of my equipment. I'm at the mercy of time for editing. And so stick with me, be patient, drop me comments, shoot me an email, tailoredturnings@gmail.com. I'm on the Instagram at Tailored Turnings. And you'll have some information on this project here that I'll try and put into the description, but I'll also try and post some text box up on the screen so you can capture the materials list if you're interested at all in doing this particular project. And remember, put your own spin on it. So if you want to change those hinges up to something heavier or work with a different style of latch, This is shooting from the hip here, so it's not perfect, but it serves its purpose. So hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll see you around on the next video, and go out there in your shop and go make something. Appreciate you guys sticking around. Have a good day.